Breaking, FBI and DEA hit Minnesota before dawn.
Breaking, FBI and DEA just hit Minnesota.
The temperature sits at 38 degrees. Dawn hasn't broken yet. Inside a sprawling warehouse complex on Industrial Park Drive, refrigeration units hum their steady mechanical rhythm. Outside, headlights converge from three directions, cutting through pre-dawn darkness. No sirens, no flashing lights, just the low growl of engines and the crunch of gravel beneath tactical tires. Federal agents breach the reinforced steel gates at exactly 4:50 to AM. Flashbangs detonate. Commands echo across loading bays designed to handle 40-foot containers. Workers in reflective vests hit concrete floors, hands zip-tied behind their backs within seconds. This is Laundering Regional Transport, a company that has serviced Walmart, Target, and Kroger for 12 consecutive years. A company with 400 drivers, federal DOT certifications, and a spotless safety record. What agents discover in the next 47 minutes will redefine everything federal prosecutors thought they understood about narcotics infrastructure. In the United States, 273 arrests across 5 states, 52 tons of methamphetamine, fentanyl, cocaine, and heroin seized from trucks, warehouses, and something no one was prepared to find: an underground tunnel stretching 1,400 feet beneath American soil, wide enough to move industrial pallets, reinforced with concrete and steel I-beams, operating undetected for years beneath a facility that passed city inspection 7 times. This wasn't a drug bust. This was the systematic dismantling of a cartel-owned logistics empire that poisoned communities while wearing the mask of legitimate American commerce. If you're still watching, tap like right now. This story needs to reach every corner of the nation, where citizens trust the systems designed to protect them. Every engagement pushes this investigation past the algorithms that bury inconvenient truths. The investigation didn't begin with a tip from an informant or a routine traffic stop. It began with a pattern that federal analysts couldn't explain away. 18 months earlier, AD intelligence specialist named Dr. Marcus Reeves sat inside a secure facility in Houston, staring at overdose data that violated every statistical model. Rural counties across Texas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma were reporting methamphetamine overdoses in synchronized waves, not gradually, not randomly, in clusters separated by hundreds of miles, but occurring within 48-hour windows. Purity levels were identical across samples seized in towns that had never seen product above 60% pure. Emergency rooms in counties with populations under 10,000 were suddenly treating patients with methamphetamine concentrations reaching 94% purity. Epidemics don't move with that kind of precision. Supply chains do. Dr. Reeves began cross-referencing hospital admission dates with commercial transportation data pulled from databases. Every spike in overdoses aligned with increased freight activity along specific interstate corridors, not trafficking routes in the traditional sense, legitimate logistics routes. Trucks carrying produce, refrigerated goods, consumer electronics, vehicles that passed DOT inspections without triggering secondary screening. One name appeared in delivery manifests more frequently than any other: Laundering Regional Transport. Founded in 2012 outside Houston, operating for 100 drivers across 6 states, maintaining contracts with America's largest retailers. On paper, the company represented the efficiency of American capitalism. Behind that facade, federal agents would discover was a $817 million annual narcotics distribution network designed to withstand the exact scrutiny that collapses lesser operations within weeks. By October, surveillance teams were deployed to 6 locations. Undercover agents photographed shift changes, logged vehicle movements, tracked shipping manifests. Thermal imaging revealed heat signatures beneath the Laredo warehouse that made no structural sense. Engineers analyzed blueprints filed with the city. The foundation was too deep. The ventilation systems were too sophisticated for standard cold storage. Something was moving beneath that concrete that was never meant to be seen. On November 14th, a federal judge in the Western District of Texas signed 63 simultaneous search warrants. The operation was designated Timberline. Coordination involved the FBI, DEA, Homeland Security Investigations, ATF, U.S. Marshals, and Texas Department of Public Safety. More than 800 federal agents mobilized across Houston, Laredo, El Paso, Dallas, and San Antonio. The raids were scheduled for 4:52 a.m. on a Friday morning. Pre-dawn darkness, minimal civilian traffic, maximum tactical advantage. At exactly 4:50 a.m., engines roared to life across 5 cities. Convoys of black unmarked SUVs moved simultaneously toward predetermined targets. Exhaust vapor trailing in frozen air. In Laredo, the lead vehicle smashed through reinforced gates that had stood for 12 years. Agents in tactical gear swept through loading bays where pallets of avocados and crates of tomatoes sat under regulation refrigeration. K-9 units knew better. 3 dogs sat simultaneously near the southwest corner, refusing commands to move. Handlers signaled the breach team. Bolt cutters retrieved. A concealed door flush with the wall, painted to match surrounding steel panels, was forced open. Behind it, a staircase descended into darkness. What federal agents discovered next would become the centerpiece of the largest narcotics infrastructure investigation in Texas history. Not a crude smuggling tunnel. An engineered subterranean corridor stretching 1,400 feet from the warehouse to an unregistered industrial property near the Rio Grande. Walls reinforced with poured concrete, ceiling supported by steel I-beams rated for mining operations, lead lighting running the entire length, ventilation systems maintaining airflow sophisticated enough to avoid thermal detection, electric carts sitting on rails designed for rapid cargo transport. This wasn't improvisation. This was industrial infrastructure constructed with the precision of a mining operation, built over years without triggering a single municipal permit review, inspection notice, or geological survey. Comment exposed below if this revelation shocks you. They counted on silence. They counted on citizens believing the systems worked. Exposure is the only weapon communities have against networks that's embedded in the institutions we're told to trust. While the tunnel team secured the underground corridor, simultaneous raids unfolded across Texas with synchronized precision. In Houston, agents breached the corporate headquarters of Lanier Regional Transport at 4:53 a.m. Glass doors shattered. Executives in tailored suits were forced onto polished marble floors slick with morning condensation. Servers were yanked from server racks still warm from overnight operations. Hard drives seized. Phones confiscated. Financial records spanning 12 years loaded into evidence vans within 40 minutes. In Dallas, a fleet maintenance facility was surrounded at the exact same moment. Mechanics working the early shift found themselves face down on grease-stained concrete as agents swarmed hydraulic bays and tool storage units. What they uncovered was a vehicle modification operation disguised as routine truck maintenance. 17 refrigerated semi-trucks were seized on site. Each one had been structurally altered in ways designed to defeat standard inspections. Floors reinforced with hidden compartments accessible only through hydraulic lifts installed beneath cargo bays. False walls constructed inside refrigeration units calibrated to maintain thermal signatures that match legitimate cooling operations. Weight distribution systems recalibrated to avoid triggering waste station sensors. These weren't smuggling vehicles. These were purpose-built narcotics transport platforms, engineered to operate within America's logistics infrastructure without detection for years. By 6:30 a.m., the scale of the seizures became devastatingly clear. Agents moving through the Laredo Tunnel discovered 3 staging areas carved into the tunnel walls, like alcoves in an ancient catacomb. Each one contained industrial shelving stacked floor to ceiling with narcotics, methamphetamine vacuum-sealed in bricks marked with batch numbers, fentanyl pills and pharmaceutical-grade packaging labeled with distribution codes, cocaine compressed into kilogram blocks wrapped in plastic stamped with cartel insignia, heroin in powder forms stored in containers labeled like inventory in a distribution warehouse. The total weight recovered from the tunnel alone exceeded 8.3 tons. Black market value estimated at $247 million in El Paso. A secondary warehouse linked to the same network was breached simultaneously. Agents found no drugs. Instead, they found something far more dangerous: documents, ledgers detailing shipments going back 9 years, routing schedules, payment records, offshore account numbers registered in Panama, the Cayman Islands, and Belize. And names. 12 individuals employed by federal and state agencies with direct oversight of transportation, logistics, and border security appeared in those ledgers. Some held administrative positions inside Texas Department of Transportation regional offices. Others worked in inspection divisions. One was a senior intelligence analyst inside a regional D office in San Antonio. The pattern was consistent. Each official had received payments ranging from $18,400 to $74,800 over multiple years. Not large enough to trigger federal reporting thresholds, not frequent enough to establish obvious patterns. On their own, payments routed through Shell Consulting, firms with names like Southwest Compliance Solutions and Rio Grande Advisory Group, entities that filed taxes and maintained business addresses but performed no identifiable services. In exchange, these officials provided advance notice of inspections, removed flagged vehicles from watch lists, delayed warrant approvals, ensured that certain trucks were waved through checkpoints without secondary screening. This wasn't corruption. In the traditional sense, this was institutional protection. This was betrayal from inside the systems built to defend communities. Share this video if you believe officials who sell their oath deserve the maximum penalty the law allows. Your voice is the only thing that keeps investigations like this from disappearing into bureaucratic silence. By midday, arrests began in coordinated waves. Drivers were taken into custody at rest stops, fueling stations, and loading docks across 5 states. Most had no idea they were part of a criminal enterprise. They believed they worked for a legitimate company. They had commercial driver's licenses. They paid taxes. They supported families. When shown evidence of hidden compartments built into the trucks they'd driven for years, many broke down, others stared in silence, processing the realization that every load they'd hauled, every delivery they'd made, had been feeding poison into American communities. A 62-year-old driver from Oklahoma named Gerald Hoskins wept when agents explained what he had been transporting beneath crates of lettuce for 3 years. He had driven over 947,000 miles without incident. He had received company safety awards. He had believed in the system, but not all drivers were innocent. Federal investigators identified 37 individuals who were fully aware of the operation. These were cartel operatives embedded inside the logistics workforce, recruited specifically for their clean records and ability to blend into legitimate commerce. They communicated using encrypted signal channels. They coordinated delivery schedules with distribution cells in target cities, using coded language disguised as routine logistics communications. They received bonuses tied to successful shipments, paid through cryptocurrency wallets traced to servers in Guadalajara. When raids began, several attempted to flee. U.S. Marshals tracked them using cell tower triangulation and vehicle GPS systems embedded in company trucks. By evening, all but 2 were in federal custody. The remaining suspects were apprehended within 72 hours during traffic stops in Arkansas and Louisiana. As the sun set on the first day of Operation Timberline, evidence began piling up in federal warehouses across Texas. 52 tons of narcotics seized, 1.7 million fentanyl pills, 18,900 kilograms of methamphetamine, 647 kilograms of cocaine, 213 kilograms of heroin. The street value exceeded $1.10 billion. In addition, agents seized 47 vehicles, including modified semi-trucks, cargo vans, and sedans used for reconnaissance and counter-surveillance operations. 12 properties were placed under federal forfeiture proceedings, including warehouse facilities in Laredo, Houston, Dallas, El Paso, and Oklahoma City. Bank accounts holding $112 million were frozen across 6 countries. But the financial trail was just beginning. Forensic accountants from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit spent weeks reconstructing the money network. What they uncovered was a masterpiece of criminal finance designed by individuals who understood American banking regulations better than most compliance officers. Lanier Regional Transport wasn't the only entity involved. It was the centerpiece of a constellation of 23 shell companies operating as freight brokers, maintenance firms, insurance agencies, and real estate holding companies. Each one appeared legitimate on paper. Each one filed quarterly taxes. Each one held the appropriate state and federal licenses. Together, they formed a closed-loop money laundering system designed to process narcotics revenue while maintaining the appearance of lawful commerce. Here's how it worked. Narcotics revenue entered the system as cash payments to street-level distributors in target cities. That cash was then deposited into accounts controlled by freight broker shell companies that existed only on paper. These brokers issued invoices for non-existent freight shipments to Lanier Regional Transport. Lanier paid those invoices using funds generated from legitimate contracts with major retailers. effectively washing cartel cash through genuine business transactions. The freight brokers then transferred funds to offshore consulting firms registered in jurisdictions with weak reporting requirements. Those firms invested in real estate, luxury vehicles, and art. The assets were later sold at intentional losses, generating clean funds that re-entered the United States as investment capital in legitimate businesses completely unconnected to logistics. The cycle repeated continuously over 12 years. Federal analysts estimate the network laundered more than $817 million using this exact structure. Not a single transaction triggered an automatic federal review or SAR filing. Now I have to ask you a difficult question. If you knew the trucking company delivering to your local Walmart or Target was simultaneously moving fentanyl into your community, would you demand accountability from the corporations that contracted with them? Or is questioning corporate America's supply chain security too uncomfortable? Drop a comment below. This conversation matters. The human cost, however, couldn't be measured in dollars or seizure statistics. Using shipping data recovered from seized servers, analysts cross-referenced Lonier's delivery routes with county-level public health records. The results were devastating and undeniable. Between 2016 and 2024, counties serviced by Lanier Regional Transport reported 387,400 methamphetamine-related overdoses. Of those, 96,100 were fatal. Towns with populations under 15,000 saw overdose rates increased by 73% within 2 years of Lanier establishing regular delivery routes to nearby distribution hubs. Emergency rooms became overwhelmed. Foster care systems collapsed under the weight of children removed from homes destroyed by addiction. Entire extended families disintegrated. One county in rural Oklahoma recorded 40 overdose deaths in a single year. Population 7,100. That's a death rate 6 times the national average. Federal investigators later confirmed that Lanier trucks made weekly deliveries to a distribution hub operated by local gang affiliates just outside city limits. Methamphetamine moved from the hub into the community within hours of each delivery. Purity levels were consistently above 91%. Prices were kept artificially low to maximize market penetration. Availability was constant. The town didn't stand a chance. The infrastructure of addiction was built before residents understood what was happening. As the investigation expanded into its second week, the institutional rot became impossible to ignore. 12 officials had been named in the initial seizure of financial ledgers. By the end of week 2, that number had grown to 19. Some resigned before charges were filed, attempting to negotiate immunity deals that federal prosecutors rejected outright. Others were arrested at their desks during routine workdays. A senior logistics coordinator for the Texas Department of Transportation named Brian Costello was taken into custody during a budget meeting attended by 12 colleagues. A border enforcement supervisor with Customs and Border Protection was arrested at his home in El Paso, while his children watched from the driveway. A moment captured by body camera footage later entered into evidence. An intelligence analyst inside the DEA's San Antonio regional office named Derek Pullman was escorted out in handcuffs during a morning briefing on fentanyl interdiction strategies. The irony wasn't lost on the agents in the room who had worked alongside him for 7 years. Each one had played a specific role. Some had provided intelligence about upcoming enforcement operations, giving cartel logistics coordinators time to reroute shipments. Others had manipulated databases, removing flagged vehicles from watch lists or altering inspection records. A few had simply delayed action long enough for high-value shipments to clear checkpoints during narrow time windows. The payments they received were modest compared to the scale of the operation. The consequences were catastrophic. Federal prosecutors described the conspiracy as a systematic dismantling of institutional integrity, a rot that spread through agencies designed to protect the public and turned them into shields for criminal enterprises. These weren't rogue actors making impulsive decisions. They were individuals who made calculated choices over years to prioritize money over duty, personal gain over the communities they swore to serve. In doing so, they enabled a network that poisoned tens of thousands of lives, destroyed families, and turned American infrastructure into a weapon against its own citizens. Subscribe now if you want to see the next chapter of this investigation. This is not just news. This is a call to be aware, to stay vigilant, to demand accountability from the institutions we're told to trust without question. The sentencing phase began in March. Federal prosecutors sought maximum penalties under the Kingpin statute, leveraging the volume of narcotics, the sophistication of the operation, and the betrayal of public trust as aggravating factors. The tunnel itself became a focal point. During trial proceedings, engineers testified that construction would have required at least 18 months of continuous work, specialized equipment, and expertise in subterranean engineering. The fact that it was built without detection raised questions that extended beyond Lanier Regional Transport and implicated municipal oversight failures at multiple levels. Lead defendants faced life sentences without possibility of parole. Mid-level operatives received sentences ranging from 15 to 35 years. Drivers who cooperated and provided testimony received reduced sentences, though few avoided prison time, entirely given the scale of the operation and the harm caused. The corrupt officials faced separate proceedings under federal bribery and conspiracy statutes. Brian Castillo, the Texas dock coordinator, was sentenced to 23 years. Derek Pullman, the DEA analyst, received 27 years. The border enforcement supervisor was sentenced to 19 years. Each one delivered statements during sentencing expressing remorse. Federal judges made clear that remorse didn't mitigate the systemic damage they had caused. The property seized during the raids were auctioned under federal forfeiture laws. The proceeds, over $89 million, were directed to drug treatment programs, law enforcement training on cartel logistics tactics, and victim compensation funds for families destroyed by the operation's reach. But here's what keeps federal investigators awake at night. Lanier Regional Transport was one network, one operation, one tunnel. The infrastructure it represents the blending of criminal enterprises with legitimate commerce, the corruption of trusted officials, the exploitation of America's logistics. Systems continues to operate in forms that haven't yet been discovered. Every truck that passes through a checkpoint without secondary screening. Every warehouse that operates 24 hours a day in industrial zones where no one asks questions. Every official who receives a consulting payment from a company that performs no identifiable services. These are the vulnerabilities that networks like Lanier exploit with precision refined over decades. The collapse of this empire sent shockwaves through cartel operations across North America. Intelligence analysts observed a 40% drop in methamphetamine availability in targeted regions within weeks of the raids. But cartels adapt. New logistics networks are already being built. New officials are being recruited. New tunnels are being dug. This is not the end. This is a warning. The systems designed to protect communities can be turned against them. When citizens stop demanding transparency, when oversight becomes performative, when institutional trust replaces institutional vigilance. Stay informed, stay engaged, question what you're told to accept without examination. The next cartel logistics empire is already operating beneath the surface of legitimacy, counting on silence and apathy to shield its operations until it's too late. If this investigation revealed something you didn't know, hit like and share this video. Every engagement tells the algorithms that citizens care about what happens beneath the surface of the institutions they're told to. Trust. Your voice matters. Use it. The networks counting on your silence are watching.